everyone thinks like big factory farms are bad, but they're putting us small farms out of business because it's so expensive to farm. It's much more profitable to rip out your orchard and sell the land as residential.
This is the Real Food, Real People podcast.
She wants to continue her family's small orchard into the next generation. But it's not easy, as we hear this week from Anna Nicholson of Nicholson Orchards in Peshastin, Washington. She and her siblings are trying to continue on the operation into the fourth and fifth generations. But her dad is suffering from a horrible degenerative disease, and she explains how that's made things challenging, even more challenging for continuing on the family farm. It's something that many family farms face, and particularly small family farms, and her story highlights what those pressures are here in Washington to keep small farms and family farms continuing in the current climate, the current pressures, the current struggles that they face. And goodness knows, farming by itself isn't that easy, not to mention all the additional pressures that they have on them. This is the Real Food, Real People podcast. I'm Dylan Honcoop. I'm your host. Thank you for joining me on this continuing journey I'm on around Washington State to get to know the real people behind our food. Thank you to our sponsors, Washington Red Raspberries, supporting the podcast. We appreciate their support and the delicious fruit they produce here. Williams, powering our clean energy future. They stepped up to help support our sharing of stories of real food and people here in Washington. And Mana Insurance Group, new sponsor this season, helping you plan your financial future and protect it. Of course, we know what insurance is about, but you need to go into things with a plan, and that's what they're about, trying to be prepared ahead of time rather than just picking up the pieces when things go wrong. Also Washington dairy farmers supporting the podcast. They are at waddairy.org. You should check it out because they've got a new online farm tour, virtual farm tour there that you can take and see what life is really like on a Washington dairy. Again, waddairy.org. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Now, here on the Real Food, Real People podcast, we connect with Anna Nicholson of Nicholson Orchards in Peshastin, Washington. Here we are in the orchard. What's going to happen? These trees have just been pruned, right? Which is kind of what, the first thing that you guys do for the year in the orchard coming out of winter?
Yep. We start pruning in probably February when the snow is low enough that the guys can walk around. If not, we'll drive snowmobiles up and down the rows to pack it down for them.
Really?
Yeah, if there's a lot of snow.
Pack the snow down so you can go out there and prune the trees?
So you can walk out there with their ladders. Yeah.
So how deep does, like right where we're sitting, how deep does the snow get here? When it's like a serious snow?
I would say we usually would get like 10 feet. Last winter was really bad.
Like 10 feet deep?
Like 10 feet of snowfall.
Oh,
total.
But what's the deepest it will ever get?
It'll be at least like 4 foot, probably packed out here.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like we would be like under snow right now, sitting here. Like it would be like here.
Yeah, it would be like this tall, like as tall as a table. Yeah. My favorite thing to do is take my dog out because she's high energy, and we just cross-country ski up and down the rows, and she runs, and
nice.
we love it. It's my favorite thing to do after work.
Because at that time of the year, what else can you do on the farm, right?
Nothing.
Watch it snow.
Yeah, I love the snow.
And all that snow is not bad for the trees?
Nope, they like it. They go dormant, and it's fine for them. Until the blossoms start, then you don't want the freeze because that'll kill the crop.
So is it actually good to have a good cold winter with lots of snow with these trees? Does that help them produce more?
I'm not sure if it helps them produce more, but I wouldn't say it probably matters that much because you have your warmer climates like towards Aranda where they don't get any snow. Mm-hmm. But the trees can handle it. for sure.
So in the wintertime, nothing to do, snow coming down, but you said you go cross-country skiing in the orchard after work. So you don't just farm. What's your other job?
So the past couple winter seasons, I've been working in Leavenworth for the ski hill.
Okay.
Doing their cross-country stuff, So
you really got to love the snow to do that.
Yes.
You have a snow job.
I have a snow job, and before that, I used to work at a resort in Leavenworth where I did remove snow, and that was fun. Driving heavy machinery and shoveling, 8 hours a day, all day long. I just shoveled.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I loved it.
And so that's the way of farming, and I hear that from so many folks too. It's like you can't just farm, and farmers aren't just sitting back getting rich farming. Like,
no,
you have to do other stuff to be able to keep the farm going, basically, right?
Yeah, I have to. The fruit stand closes in November, and then I take the month to put everything to bed, and then I have to work because I need money. So
yeah, exactly.
My season just ended. I was done last week with the ski hill, so now I have the next couple months off where I'm just planting for my gardens and flowers, and then the fruit stand will open as soon as I get cherries in June.
Awesome. So yeah, what's the process now? These trees around us are just starting to wake up. There's a lot of work that's got to get done before you can start picking fruit off of trees, right?
Yes. We'll prune. They still have a couple weeks, I think, of pruning. They'll start flailing, which is where it's an implement behind the tractor that chops up really big branches like a mower, but it's more hardy.
Yep.
And then we'll start spraying. We're supposed to spray next week. We'll probably do a helicopter spray first because the ground's still too wet, and we have like really steep hillside over there, so it's kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
So we'll probably helicopter spray, and then we'll start spraying with the tractor. And then after that, we'll just keep spraying every couple weeks, and they'll mow the rows and maintain the irrigation, and we just wait until August when we start harvest.
But you do have cherries, you said too?
So we only have like 20 cherry trees. I buy a lot, like all the cherries for the fruit stand I buy in from just a farmer down the road.
Yeah.
Our trees, they were cool because they were certified organic. We're actually dropping our cert this year. So I was able to make a good chunk of change off of them because no one around here offers certified organic cherries.
Yeah, there's definitely a premium when you're selling an organic product.
Yeah.
Right?
But we're not going to have it this year, so I'll still have the trees. They don't produce that much to make anything off of.
No, last year I was up the road and over in Orondo. You mentioned earlier interviewing April Clayton over there, and they do organic apples, and they had organic cherries, but they had the same thing. The organic stuff that they had to use actually was bad for the trees. So to keep the trees alive, they had to quit using that stuff. It was kind of a surprising moment, I remember, in that conversation, because it's the opposite of what people think about organic versus conventional, and that sometimes conventional is lower impact and better on things. Sometimes it's not. It totally depends, right?
It depends in your area. Since we're pretty high elevation up here, we had 10 acres that was certified organic. It was mostly Golden Delicious. And once my brother and his wife took over the orchard in about 2015, they were either breaking even or losing money on it. And they decided to rip it out, which was hard. My dad started with the WSU organic program like back in 2000 when it was starting. So it was his baby.
Yeah.
And it's hard for him to see us quit it. But we ripped out those trees, and that's when I got to start my gardens, because I had all that space. And we still have a small chunk of pears that are organic. They do not do well, and that's why we're stopping this year. The fruit's super small. There's a lot of psylla, and the pickers don't like to pick it because of how sticky they get. So we have to pay them extra.
So what's psylla? That's a bug, right?
It's a bug.
So it's a hard bug to get rid of.
Yeah, and it's like a honey. Like when you pick, it just like covers you and you're dripping in it, and it's sticky like honey.
From the bugs?
It's all over. It runs on the pears and on the leaves and the branches. So you have to pay the guys extra to pick it, and then you don't make money in the warehouse because the fruit's smaller and it doesn't look good, and so it's a lose. I do have in the acres where the Goldens were, over the years my dad would plant, he would like take out a tree and plant a different variety. So I still have a few trees of probably about 12 different varieties. That works great for me. I can sell them at the fruit stand. I pick them myself, and it's been a great market to have certified organic, but I'm not going to this year, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, because it's a lot of pressure and it's a lot of work, and it's harder than people think sometimes, right? It's interesting what people's perceptions are on the outside of a farm or an orchard like this.
Yeah, a lot of customers at the fruit stand, they know me because I have organics. So that's going to be heartbreaking to tell them this year.
Right.
And then other people who will come in will be like, well, why don't you do everything organic? Why not?
Right.
Like, it's really expensive. It's a long process. The trees don't like it in our area. It's hard. Can't just become organic.
Yeah. So talk about your family. Your family's been on this piece of ground for a long time, right?
Yes. I'm 4th generation. My niece is 5th, the first 5th.
That's awesome.
Yes.
How old is she?
She's 6.
Is she a farmer girl? Does she like getting out on the farm?
She's a farm girl.
Awesome.
Loves riding her 4-wheelers, her horses.
Yep.
Yes. She's homeschooled, so she works with Mom every day out in the orchard.
So what was your family story? How did they end up here 4 generations ago?
They came from Prince Edward Island after the war.
Wow.
World War I, I believe.
Okay, yeah.
And he was with the other growers in Peshastin that started all these orchards. And they even started Bluebird, the warehouse, where we still take our fruit today. So he was all part of that. And then my grandfather took over from him. And my grandpa fought in World War II as well. And then he took over for many years, and my dad farmed alongside him. My dad, he fought in the Vietnam War and then worked in Seattle for quite a few years in medical. He was a medic. And then he married my mom over in Seattle, and they decided they wanted to come back over here.
Get back to the farm life.
Get back to the farm life. They already had my brother and sister, and my older sister, my 2 sisters and brother, and they moved over here, and then I was born as a surprise. And my dad has ran the orchard, and then in about 2015, my brother and his wife took it over, and they're in the process of buying it from my parents.
That's not an easy thing to do, make that transition.
No.
A lot of family farms go away at that point because even when everybody wants to keep it going, because it's so hard, right?
It's really hard. It's not a moneymaker. We're very small. We're about 40 acres or less, so we're like a micro farm now.
Right.
And yeah, it's not a moneymaker. It's a passion. For sure. 40
acres or less. I mean, to some people, that still sounds huge, right?
Yes.
So it's those different issues of scale that sometimes kind of break down in the conversation of how farming and orchards and all that really work
Yeah, if you're not
to make it happen.
Yeah, if you're not farming large scale, you're not really making a ton of profit. You're just kind of surviving, at least in this area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the challenges to passing on the farm? Why, explain from your family's story, why is it so hard to do?
My dad, he loves the farm. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's quite a few years ago. And so we knew that we had to figure out the next step.
Yeah.
And my mom, she's had the fruit stand for over 20 years.
Did she start it?
She started it on the bed of a flatbed truck and grew it up to what it is today.
Doesn't get any more legit than the bed of a flatbed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's over it. She wants to be done. She wants to travel.
Yeah.
I wanted to get doing stuff with my dad while he still can.
Right.
And so it's been hard because my dad, he doesn't want to let go. And we're trying to improve the farm, which my brother and sister-in-law have made great improvements. And we know, what's coming. And from a younger generation, we're trying to come with the new ways, and he wants the old ways.
Classic.
And so that's been a struggle in itself.
Yeah.
For sure. And with the fruit stand, my mom has been great. I mean, I've completely changed it, and she loves it. And she helps me still, since I mostly do it all by myself.
Awesome.
I don't hire people.
So she doesn't have to feel chained to it all the time anymore.
Yeah. So her and my dad can go. We try to get them to leave, and they still don't.
Farmers always say that. I remember with my grandpa, interestingly, my mom's dad actually suffers from Parkinson's as well. So I have, I know all too well how challenging that road can be to walk.
Yes.
And, it was the same thing with my grandpa and grandma. They wanted to do things, but then when it came right down to it, it was hard for them to get away, and then time wastes away. And then suddenly, they're at a place now where they don't want to. They just want to stay put. They don't have the energy to take that on, and all the different challenges that they face as it is. Every day is tough enough. So I totally get that on the, get out and do it when you can. Don't be too tied to the farm. They just need to let you guys go and do it.
They do. My grandpa, he traveled everywhere, all over the world, because my dad was running the farm.
Yeah.
And my grandfather passed away from Parkinson's as well. And he was out driving tractor when it was very scary. He should not have been out there. And he couldn't let go either.
Yeah.
But at least he traveled and he got out. But my dad hasn't. So we're really pushing.
I had that experience with my grandpa.
Yeah.
Years ago, when he was still able to get around more than he can now. But still, he was shaky and, and I drove by their place, which I own now, but they still lived there, and he owned it then, and he was up in the loader bucket of a tractor working on the roof of the garage.
Yeah.
And I was about to ream on the brakes and turn around and tell him, get down from there, and I realized at that moment, just keep driving. That's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
So there is an element of that too, where knowing my grandpa, he'd rather do that and take the risk than have somebody tell him to be cooped up in the house and not at least puttering around his farm in his old age. It's so.
I'm
there's
not
the balance
that nice. I was that way for a while, and now it scares me, and I go out and yell at my dad to stop.
Well, it's not easy because you want them to be able to do what they want to do, but it's hard to see them not be safe. You want to protect your family, right?
Yep. Yeah, it can be scary.
Totally get that. So you run the fruit stand. Explain what it is. Nicholson's Fresh or something. What's the official name of it?
Nicholson's Orchard Fresh Fruit Stand.
Corner of Highway 97 and Campbell Road if you're looking for some fresh fruit. So what do y'all sell? How does it go? What's the season? Tell me how it works.
So I open in June as soon as I get cherries, sometimes Memorial Weekend, but that's when it's really early season. I bring in cherries, which I get from a farmer down the road, or I'll get some from Quincy. I have friends in Quincy too, Wenatchee. And then we'll go into apricots. We don't grow apricots either, so I bring those in. And then we get into peaches. And we do have some peach trees that were also organic, which was a good seller.
Yeah.
But there's a guy who lives right up Campbell Road who grows the best peaches, and I sell his peaches, and
awesome.
They're the best. And we get in nectarines as well. We have a couple trees, but they're just for us. And then it's apples and pears, and we grow all those, and I sell all those at the fruit stand. I pick them myself.
Wow.
Yep. All the apples.
That's not easy work, especially if you're doing it all by yourself.
It's rough. I wake up early, try to pick for 2-3 hours before I have to go open the fruit stand.
How early is early?
6.
Yeah.
Yeah. 6-ish. And then open the fruit stand by 10, work till 5, close the fruit stand, go back out and keep picking. And I'll do that for about a month. So this year I need to hire someone so I can just get it done in a week.
So apples are your big deal here.
Apples are popular. We grow mostly pears here. There's probably 70-ish apple trees, maybe less than that.
Okay.
And then everything else we grow is pears.
Okay. And what varieties or types of pears do you have?
Mostly Anjos.
Okay.
And mixed in with Bartlett's, kind of as pollinators, so they're randomly all over the orchard. It's not like a certain section.
Yeah. How does that work? They have to cross-pollinate to set fruit?
Mm-hmm. Yep. The bees, we get the bees in April sometime.
So you actually hire them out?
Yep. Hire bees out, and they'll come, and the bees will do all the work, pollinate the Bartletts and the Anjos, buzz all around.
When do the bees leave then?
They're only here for about a week, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really short.
It's not long.
And then they haul them over to us where we're doing berries on the west side. My dad always gets bees for everybody gets bees over there too. Kind of mid-May though, so it's a little bit later. Yeah.
It's in April. Yeah, it's just a week, maybe 2 weeks. Not long at all. So we have the Anjos and the Bartletts and the apples, and then...
What kinds of apples? You said you had some Goldens, but you had to take those out.
I kept 2 trees.
Nice.
So I still got 2 golden trees, early golds, some original Red Delicious, Fuji, Gala, Honeycrisp, Jonna Gold, Gravenstein, Granny Smith, Macintosh, Macoun.
Wow, you're listing a lot of the classics there.
Yeah.
I like the Gravensteins. I've always loved Gravensteins, and they become less and less common all the time, it seems like.
I have 2 trees, I think. Yeah.
I love them for eating, but they're awesome for baking, too.
Yep.
Like a pie with Gravenstein apples, in my opinion. That's, the best.
Yeah, it's one of the first varieties I pick, and, I just sell boxes of them right away.
Yeah, I'm
sure. People want to bake.
Yeah.
Make sauce.
Yeah, totally. That's making me hungry. So with all of those different varieties, how do you keep track of it? Are you able to kind of treat them all the same, or, how you have different time, they probably ripen at all different times, probably a lot of different stuff you have to keep track of with that many different varieties.
Yeah, they do ripen at different times, so that's good for me to pick.
Yeah, true.
Start picking with the Gravensteins, and then the last ones are the Granny Smith and the Pink Ladies. which I keep for myself because they're my favorite. And our head guy, he'll spray, just the organic spray. Now that we ripped out most of the Goldens, we're just giving those apple trees what we give the pear trees. So it's nothing special anymore.
Right.
Yeah, and he prunes for me, and then that's all there is until it's time to pick.
So much work, though, when you add it all up for a long time.
Yeah.
From like now through when are you finally done? Like when you close up the stand and call it a year?
November 1st, usually, or the first weekend of November.
So you got a lot of months ahead of you.
Yeah. It's just
I'm not supposed to remind you of that right now.
Yeah.
You're supposed to think that at the end of the season. So how does it go at the stand? You just kind of have to hang out there during the day and people come by, and does it stay pretty busy? How do you like market yourself and stuff? Like, I've always been intrigued by this because I've always wanted to have a stand like that.
Yeah. We just have a good following. It's crazy to me. You know, we're on this stretch of highway in 2 miles, and there's 3 other fruit stands before mine, which is, it's just nuts when I think about it. And there used to be 2 more. There was one more and then one more up the road. And we're all, we all compete with each other.
Yep.
And the one down the road is my cousin's even.
Competing with family.
Yeah. And I had a good thing with the organic. I sold to some restaurants in Leavenworth.
Awesome. Yeah.
Like the resort I used to work at loved to take my fruit, and I try to market online, and I used to do the Leavenworth Farmers Market, which got me a good following there.
Yeah.
With organic as well. But I didn't do it last year. It was the market changed because of COVID.
Right.
I didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so I was really worried last year because our highway was silent for months, which was amazing. But I thought I had no idea how the season would go.
Your dad was probably feeling like this was what the road was like when I was a kid.
Yeah. This is nice.
Nice on one hand, but on the other hand, you need people coming down the road to buy your fruit.
Yes. And yeah, I was really worried, but it was such a busy summer, and I don't know if people were traveling and they didn't care. I mean, everyone still came to Leavenworth. No one cares. And or if they just wanted to buy their food from the source as well. I also launched a CSA last summer.
Oh, wow.
For the first time, and that went really well. And so
what does it take to launch one of those? That's kind of a commitment because somebody's going to buy in ahead of time, and you're basically promising them a box of food every week or something like that, right?
Yes. I knew I could do it. I was part of a CSA through the winter, and that was my first time doing it through the rhubarb market in Wenatchee.
Okay.
And I was like,
do you know Sandy Bammer?
Yeah.
We had her on the podcast.
Yeah, I heard it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that was cool to get fresh fruit or food through the winter.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to do this. I can do it. And so I just kind of put it on Facebook and Instagram, and I was like, here we go, Leavenworth, I'm doing it. And people signed up. I did it every 2 weeks. People would come and get their box, and it was a lot. It was like over $40 of produce. And it lasted a couple months. I don't remember how many weeks I did it, but I think I had like 20 people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So where do all these people come from? Like Wenatchee and Leavenworth mainly, or?
Yeah. I had some people, some neighbors up the road here, people in Leavenworth, and a few people from Wenatchee.
What about the stand? Like, where are those people from? Are they mostly local too, or are there more people, traveling through the area?
Mostly people just driving by. I do have a good local following.
Yeah.
Some people that will come like once a week and get stuff, but everyday business is just people driving by. But it's also a lot of people who come, like, they come to Leavenworth every year, and so every year they're like, we stop here because we love you and we love your fruit stand. And so it's a lot of repeat customers, but
Well, Washington is famous for its tree fruit.
Yes.
And especially here in this area, Wenatchee, higher elevation. I've talked with people on the podcast before why, the various theories on why they think the fruit here is just something special.
It's the best.
Yeah, the elevation and the cycle of the seasons and the soils, and there's so many factors that there are few places in the world that produce fruit like you folks are able to grow here. So people come from far and wide. What's the farthest away someone's come to your stand? I guess you don't always know where they've come from, but do they ever say?
It's usually just people you can tell like aren't from this country.
Yeah.
And they'll say, "Oh, I'm coming from, China or India."
Oh, wow.
It's my first
Global
time
travelers,
here.
yeah.
And they all want to come pick fruit and walk through the orchard, and I have to tell them no.
Yeah, you can't just let people into the trees, right?
No, that is not allowed.
Why is that? Explain that.
It's a warehouse rule, part of Global Gap, and if you don't comply, then you can get fined and your fruit can be rejected from the warehouse, and you can lose.
It's like a food safety thing.
It's food safety, yeah.
Okay. So Global Gap, that's all about food safety, right? Like GAP is good agricultural practices. Global meaning the standards in theory are supposed to be applied around the world the same way. And I say in theory because I know there's a lot of concern about, outside of this country, are they, other places, are they really following those rules? But those are the kinds of things people don't realize. Oh, hey, we'll go out into the field. And it's like, no.
Nope.
That's a food safe zone. Like, you stay out of there.
Yeah, even, like, you're not supposed to allow dogs in the orchard unless they have a job. So all of our dogs work for us. Yeah. And so it's like the big companies like Walmart that want this. And so if Bluebird wants to sell their fruit to Walmart, we have to comply to the Global Gap. And if we don't, then our fruit can be rejected and we make no money.
Even if your food is the fruit that you grow is totally safe, but it's just because the rules that are there as a safeguard weren't perfect. Or maybe even just the record keeping, because I know the record keeping for Global Gap can be huge too, right?
A lot of paperwork.
You probably have like binders, right?
Yeah, my sister-in-law does all of that. She is binders and piles, and she's on top of it.
And you have to like keep filing records like different times of the year and stuff like that too, right? To stay on top of it.
All year long.
And like, will people come out from the warehouse and check? I know we'll have that sometimes with berries over on the west side. The buyers will even come and check and look around, and mostly they just want to see where the fruit's coming from. But are they checking for, did this one, I saw a dog walk around that,
Yeah, we get inspected at least once a year, and we know when it's coming.
Yeah.
So it's not that bad. But if on the off chance someone was to drive by the fruit stand and see a bunch of people out in the orchard, and they report it, then we're in big trouble.
It's hard because in some ways it makes sense, and foodborne illness is a bad thing, and there's lots of, reasons why. But it never used to be this way.
Yep.
I mean, what would your grandpa say if he were here now?
Probably say this is stupid.
Because, I mean, people picking apples and pears and stuff probably always had dogs with them, and wildlife would wander through the field, and it was more kind of just life and natural.
Yep.
Now we're all scared of it.
Yes. Have parties in the orchard, coffee breaks. They're not supposed to eat their lunch in the orchard anymore, and use the bathroom, of course. Yeah. No, can't drive in the orchard.
Yep.
Like, they would drive their cars up a row to get closer.
Right. Yeah.
Can't do that.
No big deal. Yeah.
Not allowed.
That's why I kind of scratch my head sometimes when people are convinced that the food that's produced here in this country is super unsafe.
I know.
And it's like, okay, things happen rarely once in a while. But 9 times out of 10, even when that happens, you dig around, you find out that fruit probably didn't come from the U.S., right?
Yeah. Everything in the U.S. is so safe. No matter what you eat, it's safe. And it drives me nuts seeing, like, on social media, people putting down agriculture and any kind of, dairy or fruit, vegetables. It's all safe.
Why do you think that is? I mean, like, what do you hear from people? What do you think is going on with people who just don't know?
Luckily, I don't know personally anyone who puts down egg or, has these outrageous views. But the big people I follow on social media who love to advocate, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And they just, and you can see in the comments the people, like, their ignorance. And it's so sad to me. And like cows, contributing to global warming.
Right. Yeah.
It's so ridiculous.
And even like back to these food safety rules and all the different things, a lot of people see something, they perceive that there's a problem, or maybe somewhere else they think there's a problem, and so they want new rules, and that applies to everybody, and that adds costs. Yes. And then for a place like here, very small orchard, been in the family many years, you guys know what you're doing, haven't caused any problems, but you have to comply, like you're saying, follow all these rules, and they sound nice, but they're also expensive.
Yes.
And then it becomes really hard for especially the small farms like you folks, which everyone wants to keep going.
Exactly. Everyone thinks like big factory farms are bad, but they're putting us small farms out of business because it's so expensive to farm.
Right. Which, those rules end up giving the advantage to the big operations because they can just kind of soak it up, right? Mm-hmm. You guys can't soak up a big change. Like,
nope.
It's just your family.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's hard. And we're going to we try to keep going for as long as we can. I don't think we can get much bigger because a lot of the small farms around here, they're being either ripped out or bought out by the bigger people. Mm-hmm. So there's not really opportunity to buy small chunks and expand like close around us. Unless maybe we went.
Which is the way a small operation has to do it, right? Mm-hmm. Just a little piece at a time and try to build the base.
It's much more profitable to rip out your orchard and sell the land as residential in this area. Way more.
That sounds like where I come from in Western Washington. Mm-hmm. And we're losing farmland like crazy to residential development. Mm-hmm. People don't think about that as much in Eastern Washington, but it happens here too.
Oh, yeah. We have a piece just down the road, down the highway, that my brother and his wife just purchased from my parents.
Yep.
But my parents were considering ripping it out and selling it because it is worth a lot of money without any trees on it. It's a prime location. Mm-hmm. But luckily that didn't happen.
Well, and it seems like people have the sense that, well, you shouldn't do that. And so a family like yours then ends up in a quandary because you have bills to pay. Mm-hmm. You have families, multiple now, to your parents, you, your brother and sister-in-law. I don't know if others are involved in the farm. Everybody has to be supported by it.
Yeah.
Or somehow. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, hey, why don't you just not sell that for residential and keep farming? It's like, well, thanks, but then we're just, you're like dooming us to perpetual poverty.
Yeah.
It's like, what can we do?
Yeah, my brother works full-time off the farm. He does body work on cars. Mm-hmm. So he does that year-round, full-time. And then my sister-in-law manages the day-to-day of the orchard, manages the crew, does all the paperwork. And my brother will work on all the equipment, on his weekends after work. And then he takes time off for harvest. But that's how they make it work.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the development thing is very scary to me as I see more and more. I drive by houses and I'm like, I remember there used to be a strawberry field there, a hay field there, and potatoes. It's all houses now. And it's sad to me that that's happening here too. But Like, look at what your family is facing. And I know this is what my family faced too. Well, if that land has some value and you know you have costs coming up in your life, like with your dad dealing with Parkinson's,
Yep.
like you have to plan ahead. What are you going to do?
Exactly.
And you may end up in a terrible situation where you don't want to, but you may have to sell land to be developed. And then people would want to shame you for that too, you know?
Yep. Yeah, we actually just, we're going to sell a 10-acre chunk right over there to our head guy. And so he'll have a little chunk of trees and then a lot of the woods up on the hill.
Yeah.
But that was just to have some money coming in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What do you think about some of the stuff that's happening here in Washington State right now? We've been talking about the pressures already on farming, and there's more headed our way. Have you been following some of that stuff, or you have thoughts on any of that?
Like the overtime stuff?
Like that stuff.
That would ruin us for sure.
Really?
Last year, we had to tell our guys, which we only have 2 guys that we keep going all summer, and then we bring a crew in for harvest.
How many people are in the crew when you're at the height of harvest?
We get like 10 to 13 guys.
Yep.
A lot of return guys, and then we'll have some randoms from California or just traveling the area and working.
Yeah.
But we had to, last year we cut his hours to 40, said, sorry, you can't work more than 40 hours. Right now we're letting them, we'll see how it goes. And he gets paid more than minimum wage, all the workers do.
Yeah.
We get paid more than minimum wage, so.
Well, you probably, because it's hard to get workers, right? People who are good.
So hard.
Yeah.
And you have to up your pay because they say, well, this guy down the road's paying me $16 an hour, so you have to pay me $16 an hour.
It's a competitive job market. And so because of that, you have to basically pay as much as you can, right? As much as you can afford. And so farms are already doing that. And then if any hours worked over 40 now cost 50% more, that makes it that much harder. That's what I've been hearing from folks. And so then it's like, okay, well then you can't have your crew work that long because it's like we're already paying as much as we can afford. We can't afford anymore. So, okay, people will just work 40s. What are the workers saying about that, though? And how did, you said you've already had to do that and limit hours for some people.
Yeah.
They probably didn't like that, I would assume.
Yeah, I don't think he was a fan.
What did he say?
He didn't say much.
Yeah.
He works really hard, and he kept working, and he hasn't really said yay or nay about it.
Yeah.
But before last year, he worked a lot of hours, just whatever he wanted, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah. So, and like Saturdays, now we don't let them work on the weekends anymore.
It's a shame because people who are in it and been in it for a long time like it. Just like you can't get your parents to go away. They want to travel, but they're still around the farm. They like part of it. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, our guys are great. They've been, one guy, he's been here my whole life. He worked with my grandpa. And then our head guy, he's been here a long time too. I'm not sure how many years, but at least 10 for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Obviously, he must like his job here. He's
Yeah.
still around all the time because, like you're saying, there's probably plenty of other places he could go to if he wanted to.
Yeah, he could. We also give them free housing, so they live. Those 2 guys live here on the farm as well. Yeah.
So, what's going to happen this summer? Is it going to be a good harvest?
Hope so. Last year was really good. Fruit looked good. And we came out, we had a little more bins in each section than the previous year, which is always good. But yeah, for the fruit stand, so this year I'm changing it up. I'm growing flowers.
Wow.
Yes.
What kind of flowers are you growing?
All the flowers.
All of them.
Yes. I'm going to
Right on.
start a cut flower garden.
Yeah.
I did it last year. I had 2 friends approach me in 2019 and asked me to do their weddings, the flowers for their weddings. And I was nervous about it.
It's a big commitment. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to mess up your wedding.
Yeah, and I was like, well, sure, okay, I'll try. And one got postponed because of COVID.
Right.
And then the other one was a roller coaster. We didn't know if it was
They had to keep
happening.
changing dates and stuff.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And it ended up being in Idaho.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
So did you have to, like, cut all your flowers and truck them over there?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you grew them all?
I grew them all, put them in my parents' Airstream, and we drove to Sandpoint. And,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and then I did everything once we got there. But I also, for my CSA last year, I also offered flower bouquets.
Mm-hmm.
And a handful of people did that, and I just realized when I was working in my like vegetable garden every morning, it's like I'd rather be over in the flowers. But I had to work in the veggies. They needed more attention, and I loved making bouquets. And the wedding was fun. It was really stressful, but it was fun.
So much pressure, right?
I needed a helper. But it's just me, and my boyfriend was in the wedding, so he was no help.
You're high and dry all by yourself.
Yep. But after that, I was planning to take my CSA money and do like a master gardener's class online.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw that Floret was offering a class, and I thought about it for about a week. I was like, I really want to do this. So I signed up for that, and I took that this winter and just finished up a couple weeks ago.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So did you go over to their farm in Skagit County?
No, it was all online.
Right, because COVID probably they aren't having people onto the farm.
Yeah, but
Awesome.
I learned so much. It was so great. That's what I needed to do.
Yeah.
So this year will be, I'm not growing vegetables. I am like for myself, but that's not what
What veggies were you all growing?
all of them. Tomatoes, beans, beets, radishes, kales, cucumbers, all the summer squashes, winter squashes, pumpkins. Tried to have a pumpkin patch.
Yeah. Vegetables are so much work, and people expect to pay so little for them.
They do.
I think that's where our current food system has brought people, right? Like they're used to going to Safeway, and it's super cheap.
Yes.
And it's like, these take a lot of work. How do you make them pay?
They do. And I certified it last year. I was able to because it was on the land that was already certified.
Organic, yeah.
And so that was a plus, but it was so expensive. It was over $600 to become certified, and that just, it doesn't make it worth it to me.
When you're really small, yeah.
Yeah. And there's so many great vegetable farmers in this area, in Leavenworth and in Cashmere, that I already buy from for the fruit stand.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't love doing this, and I can buy their produce, so I'm not going to do it anymore.
I don't blame you. I've always wanted to grow veggies, honestly, too. Like, I grow a little bit of a garden. I'm like, oh, I should make this bigger and start selling them. Like like I've said earlier, I'm jealous of your roadside stand because I always wanted a roadside stand since I was a young kid, and secretly I still want one. but then I look at how much work it is. And I hear, like, your story and all the work that you do to make it go, and I'm like, whew, maybe I couldn't do that.
I think that's what makes my stand cool and unique. So it's just me, and I'm out there picking and growing the veggies and growing the flowers, and the other fruit stands, they're great too. Not saying anything bad about them, but they're not one-woman shows like this one.
That's awesome. So, having grown up in tree fruit, 4th generation fruit farmer, give us some tips on fruit trees. I don't know a ton about them. I know about berries, mostly just raspberries. But generally, people who have an apple tree or a pear tree or a cherry tree, or I guess a peach tree, you guys have some of those too, in their backyard, what mistakes do they often make? Like, what do you need to know to really take care of a tree?
You have to prune them, and pruning.
So if you don't prune them, they don't do as well?
They'll
Like that
produce less because
Really?
they're just focused on growing too many things. Too many leaves, too many branches.
Yeah.
They'll just get out of control. And you need to kind of spray them somehow. I know people don't like that, but they're going to get buggy if you don't.
Yeah, whether it's conventional or organic, you got to keep the bugs off of them.
Yeah, and the only way to do that is spray.
Yeah. What about blight? I know that can be a problem.
Blight's an issue as well, and that you just have to keep your eye out for it, and if you find it, you have to cut it out right away.
What does it look like when a tree has blight?
It looks burnt, and the leaves will be brown, and the wood will get brown and burnt looking. Yeah.
So you just have to know how to spot it and then cut that part of the tree off.
You have to cut it off, and you have to cut it off deep enough where it's not like inside the tree, and so it won't come back.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all out.
Yes. It will spread.
And then how do you, make sure you get as much fruit as you can? And how do you know, like, pollination time? Like you're talking about, certain trees need pollinators. And if you just have a backyard tree, I guess there's not much you can do.
How much you can do.
Hope for the best.
Yeah. Plant pollinator things around it if you can. Maybe another tree if you can, or maybe some vegetables around the bottom or flowers that could help pollinate it. But yeah, just you have to control the pests. That's the big issue.
Control the pests, go through harvest, and then wintertime, leave the tree alone until like late winter, early spring. That's when the pruning should happen.
Yep. After you pick the tree, you can just leave it alone. Don't have to do anything to it. Some people around here spray a dormant spray. We don't, and it's fine. And then in the spring, before it starts budding, you want to prune it.
Before the buds come out.
Yes.
Because if you wait until the buds come out and prune, what happens?
Then you the tree, it kind of, takes its efforts go all over the place, and you want its efforts to focus on
the fruit
that it's going to produce for the season.
Got it.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you for having me out to the orchard here. This is the first time we've done the podcast actually in an orchard with the trees. I think that's awesome. And it's really cool to be here right now with the trees. I mean, I think I'm seeing all little buds on the ends there. Yep. Is that what I'm seeing?
They're starting to come out.
Like they're almost like they're totally dormant, but they're just starting to wake up. But you can hardly see it. So we're basically seeing a whole season that's about to happen but hasn't started yet.
Yes. We'll be in full bloom probably in April. Yeah. And awesome. It's so pretty. If you can drive in this area during full bloom and see all the trees, it's amazing.
Well, good luck with the stand.
Thank you.
And the orchard and everything. And we definitely appreciate you being willing to open up and share all the nitty-gritty details of how it actually works.
Thank you for coming.
This is the Real Food, Real People podcast. These are the stories of the people who grow your food.